Hey Megamaniacs, you got Mr. MegaManFan here with a product review and unboxing of the Brawler 64 for Nintendo 64, or as it says on the box, N64, which I imagine they did so they didn't get any legal crap from Nintendo about using a registered trademark. Although Retro Fighters is their own registered trademark for this next generation N64 controller, 2.4 gigahertz wireless with a range of 30 feet and an ergonomic design. You can see a picture of it here on the side. Now, I ordered the clear blue edition, but it comes in a wide variety of fantastic colors to mix and match with your own Nintendo 64. You can either get one that's the same or choose a completely different color, whatever you want. I got mine through Castlemania Games. It was a pre-order, but unlike most pre-orders, they actually let you use the discount coupon with it. Saved me a buck or two. I believe this is now on Amazon because I've seen Mad Little Pixel link to it in a YouTube update, so feel free to support him and order it through his channel, through his post on the community tab. He's a good dude and definitely deserves it. As for me, I don't mind what I paid for it, and I don't need to put an affiliate link of any kind. This is for my enjoyment. This is not sponsored or endorsed, and I get nothing for it if you buy it. But I wanted to try it out for myself because this is what I've always wanted for a Nintendo 64. Looks like I accidentally turned it on there while I was testing out all of the buttons. And the buttons feel really good, so that gives me a high degree of confidence going into this. And here you see the adapter with a memory card slot. Now that is a very welcome sight because you would wonder with a wireless solution how you were going to use your memory cards for Nintendo 64. Well, they thought of that. They've covered all the bases with this design for the Brawler 64. So I imagine their inspiration and the reason they call it the Brawler 64 is Super Smash Bros. Brawl. But for me, it will serve a lot of different masters because I have a lot of different Nintendo 64 games that will benefit from this unique adaptable device. It is the Wavebird of Nintendo 64 as far as I'm concerned because the GameCube, when it came out with the Wavebird wireless controllers, really changed the way I thought about playing my video games. No longer did I have cords stretched all the way across the room from one side to the other with a bunch of extenders plugged into them. I was freed. Even though I had to use batteries to keep it going, the Wavebird lasted an incredibly long time on one set of batteries, and the range on it was very powerful. I remember at one point I tested it by walking out of my apartment door back when I still lived in an apartment, and I could still play my GameCube through the door on the other side. That's how strong the signal was, and that set the bar for my expectations from that point forward. The nice thing about the modern era of wireless controllers is they now have rechargeable lithium batteries in them, and this one does come with a charge cord, typical USB-C to USB plug on the end, so should be cross-compatible with anything else that you've got, but it's very nice to see that they included a cable with the controller itself. And not a super short one either. It's actually got a good bit of length. Obviously not as long as an actual controller cord would be, but you get the idea. Speaking of wired controllers, here's my Blaze Orange Nintendo 64 with an aftermarket third-party Nintendo 64 controller, because thanks to games like Mario Party, all my original Nintendo 64 controllers have long since bit the dust, so I had to buy a replacement just to be able to play my Nintendo 64 games. I did ask my friend Fix-It Phil about repairing N64 controllers. He's the one I got this orange N64 from, and his basic advice to me was, it's not worth the cost to repair them. You might as well just get an aftermarket controller. Well, now I've got two. I've got the wireless one and the wired one. Since I know there's a little bit of juice in this one from accidentally turning it on, I'm going to unplug it from the charge cord for the moment, and then I'll fully charge it up when I get into a full gameplay session. But for now, I just want to test it and see if it syncs up properly. As you can see, the light on the receiver is blinking. Once the light goes solid on the controller, pairing has been achieved, and now you can play your Nintendo 64 games without stretching cords all the way across your living room, your rec room, your bedroom, wherever your Nintendo 64 may be. You have just become wireless and free. I've got my EverDrive 64 in here, as you can see, loaded up with my entire library of games that I own physically, as well as the games that came with it from Stone Age Gamer. They included a pack of games that they licensed and sold with the EverDrive 64. So why don't we take a look at one of those games right now. This is 40 Winks, which was originally a PlayStation game, but it turned out to be in development at the exact same time for Nintendo 64, and it never got released until Pico Interactive picked up the title and decided to get it completed and put it out in a physical cartridge form. So you can buy this box cartridge manual, the works, or if you bought the EverDrive 64, you get 40 Winks as a bonus with it anyway, so you can do it any way you like. Now at this point I haven't tried the wireless receiver with a memory pack inserted, so let's give that a shot right now. Seeing the memory pack through the translucent blue makes me very glad that I chose this particular color. Even though it doesn't match up with my orange N64, I like blue anyway. I'm MegaManFan, what are you gonna do? It repaired it successfully. This was a memory pack that I hadn't used in a long time, so maybe the data was corrupt, or maybe it got corrupted in one of my bad N64 controllers, because that seemed to happen with some of them when they hit their end of lifespan. But now I've booted up 40 Winks again with a memory pack inserted, so I can save the game if and when I want to when I get to a save point. But I think there's an even better game I can test that functionality with, so I'm going to set up a tripod right now. I think either this game or Mario 64 would be the ultimate test of how much I like the Brawler 64 and the analog stick, because each of them does a completely different method of controlling your character on the screen. With Mario 64, they basically innovated roaming around in a 3D environment, but this was ported from PlayStation, which at the time hadn't fully embraced the idea of free roaming in 3D environments in games. You had front-to-back perspectives in games like Crash Bandicoot, but in games like Bubsy 3D, you had tank controls where you had to rotate left and right and move forward, because on a traditional PlayStation controller, you had a D-pad and buttons and no analog sticks. Although eventually, they did rectify that situation and make some analog controllers, but that took a little bit of time. But I was happy with the controller that the PlayStation had, because in college that was all I had. My friend David had an N64, but I didn't get one until after I graduated, and I got some of his games after I got it because he no longer wanted them. He had moved on to PC gaming. May he rest in peace. So, this turns out to have basically the same way of controlling Mega Man as the PlayStation version did. You have to rotate and use tank controls to get Mega Man around the environments. Now I suppose a clever hacker could find a way to use the yellow buttons to control the camera and then give you free range of movement with the analog stick, but I don't know how long that would take. Some N64 games were capable of doing it that way, see Mario 64 for example, but in this case, your camera is squarely fixed on Mega Man Volnut, so you just have to deal with it. But again, on PlayStation, I just had to deal with it anyway. So at least I'm getting the full sense of the controller while I'm playing Mega Man 64. The buttons are very responsive. I'm not noticing lag of any kind. The tactile sensation of the buttons is as you would want. It is not something where you have to press too hard to get the input to register. A normal button press will do, and you don't have to go too light either, because it's overly sensitive and just barely brushing it with a hair will cause it to go off. It's just the right degree of button push, which I'm sure is something they beta tested and revamped and redesigned many times before they released this product, because they weren't going to put out a wireless N64 controller that would cost you between $30 and $40 and not get what you wanted, because then they'd get a lot of returns, especially if they intend this to be for fighting games. Now, in tournaments, fighting game players would use wired controllers because they would get the least amount of lag. And when you're doing games that require inputs in microseconds instead of seconds, every microsecond counts. So I'm not saying this is for tournament players, but maybe if you're practicing at home and you've got a special wired controller that you use just for tournaments that you don't want to wear down, you would use this instead and save your wired controller for when you're ready to smash. The bottom line is I think this will be great for casual gamers or hardcore gamers. I think they both have something to benefit from it, and I do believe it will free up a lot of cord tangle for people who have N64s at one side of the room, but their couch or recliner is at the other side of the room, and they have a long snake of extension cords just to get that controller to where they want it. No more. No more tripping over those long cords. No more buying expensive extension cables. Now you can be free to play your Nintendo 64 in comfort. And if you have it HDMI modded and you have a really clear picture and you want to sit back a good distance from it, then so much the better. You can now appreciate it to your heart's content with a wireless controller at the proper viewing distance. I'm Mr. MegaManFan. Thanks for watching, and hopefully this gives you some more information about the Brawler 64 so you can make your own decisions on whether or not it's something you want. For me at least, it's 2 thumbs up.